Hello my lovely friends on the internet, welcome to HTML. Well, in this course we are going to learn the A to Z of HTML. And by the way, my name is Destiny and I will be your instructor throughout this course. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Unlike a scripting or programming language that uses scripts to perform functions, a markup language uses tags to identify content. For example, let's say we have an example here. The P with inside the less than and the greater than symbol is known as a HTML tag. And this one is used for closing the tag. You can see there is a backslash here which is not in the opening tag. So this is what HTML tag is all about, and there is more to come, but don't worry for now because later on in this course you're going to learn about them. The ability to code using HTML is very essential for any web professional. Acquiring this HTML skills should be the starting point for anyone who is learning how to create content for the web. HTML is easy to learn, so don't wait, let us dive right into it. HTML files are test files, so you can use any text editor to create your first web page. There are some very nice HTML editors available. You can choose the one that works for you. But in this lesson, we are going to write our examples in Notepad. So if you're on Windows, you can go to the search button on the taskbar and type Notepad. You're going to see Notepad here and you click on it to open Notepad. We are going to add the basic HTML structure to the text editor, which is our Notepad. This is a line of text in the body section. So we are going to add this is a line of text in the body section. So remember what I told you in the last video. Every HTML document begins with the HTML tag and also ends with the HTML closing tag. So inside the HTML tag, which is like a container of our web, we're going to put the head tag and close it up. Remember I said the head tag contains the non-visual element of our website. So underneath the head tag, I'm going to put the body tag and also close it. So this body tag is going to contain the visual elements that we want to be displayed on our browser. So as I said earlier, I said I was going to pass a test, which is this is line of text. In this example, the file, we are going to save it as firstpage.html. So I'm going to full screen this. So we're going to click on this file on our Notepad, click on Save As. On the Save As Save button, we are going to type firstpage.html. Then change the Save As type to All Files. We're going to save this on our document and hit the Save button. So in order to see this in our browser, we're going to save it and go to where we saved the file, which is the first page. On our document, we're going to right click on it, open with Firefox. So Firefox will be the default browser I'll be using for this course. But notice something here, this tab here is now displaying a reasonable stuff. So in order to give it a custom text, we are going to go back to the Notepad, and in the Notepad we are going to create a new title tag inside the head section, and we'll type in first page and close it up. What this title tag does is it describes the web page by adding this first page on the tab of our web browser. So if I save this and go to the web browser, and okay, sorry, I didn't save it. If I save this and go to a web browser and refresh, you can see automatically the tab has been changed to what we added in between the title tag, which is the first page. The title element is important because it describes the page and is used by search engines. First, let's take a look at the HTML tag. Although various versions have been released over the years, HTML bases still remain the same. The structure of an HTML document has been compared with that of a sandwich. As a sandwich has two slices of bread, the HTML document has opening and closing HTML tags. These tags, like the bread in a sandwich, surround everything. Everything in an HTML document is surrounded by the HTML tag. Immediately after the HTML tag, inside of it there is the head of the document, the head tag, which is identified by the opening and closing head tags. The head of an HTML file contains all of the non-visual elements that helps make the page work. Inside this head tag, you will see the title, the meta tag, and all of that. But don't worry, as we continue on in this video, you're going to know much more about that. The head section element will be discussed later. And next is the body tag. The body tag follows the head tag, is always underneath the head tag. All visual structure elements are contained within the body tag. So the structure of your HTML document, your websites are all going to be inside this body tag. The headings, the paragraphs, the list, the quotes, the links, images, videos, name them. They are the elements that will be contained inside the body tag. And you can see this is the basic HTML structure. The HTML, which every tag must be inside, and the head tag, which contains the non-visual section of the website, and the body tag that contains the visual section of the head tag. The body tag defines the main content of the HTML document. And the first tag we are going to look in this video is the P tag, which is used for creating a paragraph. So this was the output of our last code, and if we go to our text editor, which was Notepad, you can see the line of text which is displaying over here. So I'm going to shrink this so that we can both see the editor and the browser side by side. Okay, I'm going to shrink this as well. Okay, so right now I'm going to create a paragraph inside our body tag. So I'm going to use the P tag to create the paragraph. So I'll say this is a paragraph. Note something here. The P tag element has the opening and the closing tag. Note that every element in a HTML tag has an opening and a closing tag, but not basically all of them. Some of them don't have an opening and a closing tag. Some of them just close themselves. Don't worry, you are going to see that in the next tag that I'm going to show you. So if I save this using Ctrl S and refresh it on our browser, you can see the text has been changed to this is a paragraph. So let's say I want to create another paragraph underneath this one. I'm still going to use the P tag and say this is a second paragraph. Close it with a closing tag. So save this and refresh on our browser. You can see the other paragraph has been displayed automatically on our browser. The browser automatically adds an empty line before and after a paragraph. As you can see, there is an empty line in between this first paragraph and the second paragraph. So what about we want to create a single line of text without starting a new paragraph? So let's say we want this paragraph to start underneath this one. This is a second, then we want this paragraph to display underneath it without creating another paragraph. So what are we going to do? We are going to use the break tag. As I said before, most HTML tags does not have an opening and a closing tag. So we are going to see that in the break tag. So let's say I create another paragraph. Okay, let's say this is a single line paragraph. You can see, for instance, let's say I refresh this, it's going to start underneath this. But maybe we don't want a new paragraph to be created. We don't want this line to, this empty space to be in between the paragraph and that last one we created. So what am I going to do? I'm going to add a line break. I'm going to create a line break here. So this is a single line paragraph. So I'm going to put a break tag in between it. So I will say B arrow, and you can see it's self-closing itself. The P element is an empty element. It has no end tag. It has no end tag. So it's an empty HTML element. It closes itself. So if I should save this and refresh, you can see the difference. It automatically displays the text that follows after it underneath without creating another space in between. You can see that. So this tag is used for creating a breakpoint in an HTML document, and this P tag is used for creating a paragraph. So in this lesson, we are going to look at headings, lines, and how to put comments in our code. So first, we're going to look at the HTML headings. HTML includes 6 levels of headings, which are ranked according to their importance. There are 6 headings, which are H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. So I'm just going to paste the headings here for you to see. So you can see the H1 tag, H1 heading has an opening tag and a closing tag. H2, H3, H4, H6, and 5, they all have an opening and a closing tag. It is not recommended that you use heading just to make the text big or bold, because search engines use headings to index the web page structure and content. So I want to show you an example of how this heading is going to look on our browser. So I'm going to save it and refresh it on my browser. So you can see the H1 tag is bigger, bolder, wider than the other headings. The H1 is always used in websites. H1, H2, they are always used in websites to emphasize on a particular paragraph. So as you can see, the h1 tag is the bigger, followed by the h2 tag, and they are all bold. So these are the basic headings in HTML. So next I'm going to look at the horizontal lines. So to create an horizontal line in our HTML page, we use the h arrow tag, which is a self-closing tag, just like the break tag which we discussed in our last video. So let's say we want to create an horizontal line underneath this second heading, this third heading, and the fifth heading. So what are we going to do? We're going to use the h arrow tag. You can see the opening tag, h arrow, and a self-closing tag. So if we save this and refresh, you can see the line has automatically been added. So we'll go down and add another line on the third heading, and also on the fifth heading. So if I save this and refresh it, you can see the horizontal line is the same. This is a way of creating a horizontal line in HTML. So next, I'm going to tell you about the comments in HTML. Comments are important if you want to describe your specific tag to a user. Remember, a comment does not show on the browser. It only shows to you as the developer, or if someone wants to read your code, it makes it readable and understandable. So to create a comment, we use the less than tag with an exclamation mark with 2 slashes, and then we put, let's say, this is my headers, okay, and you close it using the 2 slash and a closing tag. So if we save this and refresh, note it does not show on the browser, it only shows here, but the code is not going to display. Why? Because it's in a comment. If we decided to comment all of this text here, to comment it using this opening tag and then closing it at the end of the tag, at the end of the headings, it's not going to display on our browser, but we are still going to see it on this particular page. So this is a way of creating comments in HTML. It's always useful when you want users to read your code easily, and when you want to reference your code later in order to understand what you did before. HTML documents are made up of HTML elements. An HTML element is written using a start tag and an end tag, and with the content in between. HTML document consists of nested HTML elements. In this example, the body element includes the P tags. You can see the opening and the closing tag. The H1 elements also have the opening tag and the closing tag, and the content inside of it. This is a paragraph. Some HTML elements like the break, which we looked at in our last video, and the horizontal line tag do not have end tags. As I say, they are self-closing. If you want to create an element in HTML, it must begin with an open tag and a closing tag, and the content is going to fall in between it. Some elements are quite small. Since you can't put content within a break tag and an horizontal line tag, and you don't have an opening and closing break tag, it's a separate single element. These ones that don't have a closing tag are called a single element. So HTML is really scripting with elements within elements. Attributes provides additional information about an element or a tag, while also modifying them. Most attributes have a value. The value modifies the attribute. So let's say we want to align this content, this paragraph, to the center of the browser. So we are going to add an attribute which is align. We want to align the text with an equal to and a double quote, and then we put in the value which is center. So we want it to be aligned to the center of the page. If I save this and refresh it on my browser, you can see automatically this paragraph has been aligned to the center. This align here is the attribute. The value center indicates that the content within the paragraph should be aligned to the center. And note, attributes are always specified in the start tag, not in the end tag. They appear in name, which is the attribute name, and the value, which is center. But okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Okay, this headings. So there will be a little space. So as an example, we can modify an horizontal line so it has a width of 50 pixels. First, I'm going to create an horizontal line. Save this and refresh. So I want to align this. I want to give this a width of 50 pixels. That is, let it be. Okay, let me show you. So what I'm going to do at the beginning of the start tag, I'm going to add an attribute which is width with the equal to and double quote. Then I will give it 50 pixels and close the double quote. So if I save this and refresh, you can see the horizontal line has been the width has been reduced to 50 pixels. So let's say we want it to be 80 pixels. If I save and refresh it, you can see it has increased. An element's width can also be defined using percentage. So if you don't want to use pixel, you can use percentage. So let's give this a width of 50 pixels. You can see the difference. You can see percentage is much more bigger than pixel. So you got to take note that an element width can be defined using pixel or percentage. The align attribute, which was specified here, is used to specify how the text is aligned. I'm going to give you another example. Let's say we have a paragraph that is aligned to the center and a line that is aligned to the center as well. So let's say we want to align this horizontal line to left side of the web page. We don't want it to be at the center. So I'm going to create another attribute. Remember, another attribute which will be align right. If I save this and refresh, you can see it has been aligned to the right. So if I change this to, let's say, left, save and refresh, so it's going to align to the left. Hello guys, I'm so glad to know that you have made it to this point. For this lesson, we are going to upgrade our text editor. You know, in our previous videos we have been using Notepad. So right in this video, I'm going to go ahead and download a new text editor, which is Visual Studio Code. So this is my web browser. I'll just go ahead and type Visual Studio Code on Google. And the first link that appears on the Google page, you click on it. Right here we have the Visual Studio Code website open, and you can see at the left hand side we have the download for Windows. So in case you are on a different operating system, you can click on this arrow and download for Mac or Linux. So since I'm using a Windows PC, I'll just click download for Windows. And you can see this is the documentation, getting started with VS Code, blah blah blah, and all that. So you can see, thank you for downloading VS Code for Windows. I already have VS Code on my system, so in case you don't have it, just go ahead and click save file, and after the download is finished, the installation is just straightforward. Next, follow the wizard, and that's all. So after you must have downloaded the VS Code, you click on it, because this is the one I have on my desktop. So I'll go ahead and open that. Okay, once open, you're going to be greeted with this welcome page. So we don't need that. You can go ahead and close it. So there's one more thing I want us to download, is a live server. But don't worry, later on in this video you will know what exactly a live server is all about. So you click on this extension icon here, and you see search extension in marketplace. So we just type live server. Okay, you go ahead and download the first live server that appears on the extension. So mine is already installed, that's why you can see this uninstall button. So you can go ahead and install it. So the first thing I want us to do is to create a new folder on your desktop. You can go ahead and name it HTML workspace. Okay, then you can see I have my Visual Studio Code here. So what I need to do is to drag and drop this to open with Visual Studio Code. This is going to take a little second, so just give it some time. Okay, right now our Visual Studio Code is open as usual. We have been greeted with a welcome page, so I don't need that. I'm going to close it up. So here we are going to click on this new file and type in a new file. So we are going to use index.html. Going to save it with the HTML extension. Okay, so in order to make things a little bit easier for us, instead of typing the HTML body and head tag, just hold your shift key and press the exclamation mark, which is located at number 1 in the numbers key. Once you generate that, something like this is going to show, and you hit your tab button. So this is going to generate a basic HTML tag for us. You can see the HTML is here, the doc type HTML, the head section which contains the non-visual elements, and here you can see the title. So we'll go ahead and change the title to my first web page. Okay, you can see the head tag has been closed, and the body which will contain the visual elements of our web page. So next, what we are going to do now, inside this file we are going to open it with the live server which we downloaded in our last video. So go to your index.html, right click on it. Note, don't click on this one inside the open editor. You can see the one underneath the folder we created on our desktop. So right click on index.html, and you can see open with live server up here. So you click on it. Automatically your default browser will be open for you. You can see the title has been shown, my first web page, and the document is empty because we haven't added any text in our body. So let's just create a simple paragraph and say this is a paragraph. Okay, and Ctrl C to save it. You can see automatically it has been okay, let me shrink this, sorry. You can see automatically it will edit itself here instead of us clicking the refresh button. And we can add another tag. I want to show you something. Something else I want you to know, because as you downloaded Visual Studio Code for the first time, something is turned off. So in order to turn on the auto save on Visual Studio Code so that as we are typing it will be updating itself on our web browser, you go to your file and scroll down, you're going to see auto save. So by default yours is set to, is not clicked, is not selected. So we are going to go ahead and select it. So if you go back, you can see the auto save has been marked good. So that means as we are typing, so let's create a heading. Say hello. You can see as I am typing is automatically updating itself. In order to display an image or insert an image to a web page, our HTML web page, we use the image tag. You know, HTML is made up of tags. So we use the image tag to insert an image. And the image tag contains only attributes and does not have a closing tag. The image URL address can be defined using the source attribute. So the HTML image syntax looks like this. This is the image tag with the source attributes, which is used to reference the location of the image. But right now we don't have an image in our HTML file. So in order to do that, remember we created a HTML workspace on our desktop. Right now there is no image file inside of it except the HTML file. So this is the image I want to use for this lesson, which is on my desktop. So you can look for any image on your desktop, copy it and paste it inside the HTML folder which we created. You can see the extension, which is PNG file. Yours might be JPG, it doesn't matter, you can still reference it in the source attributes. So I haven't done that, I'm going to close it, open the file. You can see if you go open your Explorer in Visual Studio Code, you can see the pics here, automatically it has been added. So we'll go to the index.html and we need to put the image location for the source attribute that is between the quotation mark. So this source attribute, within the quotation mark, we are going to add the pics location. So I'm going to use pics. If you have successfully copied the image into your workspace, Visual Studio Code is going to generate the file for you. Mine is PNG extension. So I'm going to click that, and you can see automatically Live Server has refreshed and updated it on our web page. So in case the image cannot display, maybe in case you accidentally delete the image from your workspace or your HTML file, the ALT attribute, which is short for alternate attribute, specifies an alternate text that describes the image in words. The alternate attribute is required. So for example, we did not locate any image and we want an image, a text to display in place of an image. So we're going to use the alternate attribute and say HTML image. This is going to automatically add here. But in case you have an image, there's no need for using this alternate text. You can go ahead and put the image location. Okay, it's still going to display. So next, I'm going to show you how we can resize images in HTML. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to copy this particular tag to another line, okay, by creating two images. So first we are going to resize, okay, let me close this Explorer. So we are going to resize this image tag, this particular image, using the width and the height attributes. The value can be specified in pixels or as a percentage. So what I'm going to do in this lesson is I'm going to define this first image using pixel and this second one using percentage, so that you can differentiate between both of them. So first I'm going to add a height to this of 150 pixel. You can see automatically the image has been shrinked according to the attributes, the height value that I added. So next I'm going to give it a width of 150 pixel. You see automatically it will also shrink. If I give this a width of 50 pixel, it's still going to shrink. So I'll leave that at 150. So the next video I'm going to use percentage to define its width and height. So first, the height will be 50%. Okay, what? Gonna refresh it. Okay. Let me give those 30%, not 50. Okay, and also a width of 30%. You can see it has also been shrinked to the required value of the width. If I give this 10% width, it's still going to shrink also. So I'll leave this at 30%. But this is how you resize images in HTML using width, height attributes. Loading images sometimes takes time. So using large images can slow down your page, so you use them with care. Next, we are going to define a border around our images in the web page. So defining a border, we use the border attributes just as we use in the width and the height. So we define a border attribute, and I'm going to give this 2 pixel. You can see automatically the width has been added around the image. You can also use 5 pixel to make it solid, you can see. And we can also use percentage too to define a border in HTML. You can use 10%, and this is also going to apply the same result to the image. The links are an integral part of every web page. You can add links to text or images that will enable the user to click on them in order to be directed to another file or web page. In HTML, links are defined using the A tag, and this is the tag for defining a link in HTML. You can see it has an opening tag and a closing tag. So in the opening tag, we use the href attribute to define the link's destination address. So let's say we want to create a link. When the user clicks on it, to take us to an Amazon website. So we use the href attribute, and in between the double quotes we say http with 2/, and then you write the website address. In this case we are using Amazon.com. So in between the opening tag and the closing tag, we are going to write write anything that we can just say click me to open Amazon. So you can see the link has been added to our web page. Click me to open Amazon. You can see automatically the Amazon website has been opened. So let me go back and shrink this. Okay, so a visited link always have an underline and the text color is changed to purple, but a link that has not been visited will normally show a blue color. So let me copy this and create another link. Okay, so I will use Microsoft in this case. Click me to open Microsoft. I'm going to add a breakpoint. Okay, you can see this Microsoft web page link has not been visited. That's why the color is blue. But as soon as I click on it and the Microsoft home page displays, if I go back, you see the link has been changed automatically to purple. So lastly, in this lesson, I'm going to talk about the target attribute. The target attribute specifies where to open the linked document. Giving a blank value to your attribute will have the link open in a new window or new tab instead of it opening in the same tab which we have our web page. So let's say, for instance, we want to open Amazon in a new tab. Inside here, we're going to add a target attribute. Okay, then in between the target attribute, we write blank, which is underscore blank. So if we click on this Amazon web page, automatically it's going to open a new tab for us. You can see a new tab has been opened. Unlike this one, which has no target attribute, if we click on it, it's still going to open on the same web page. In HTML, there are two types of lists: the ordered list and unordered list. But first, let's take a look at the ordered list. An ordered list starts with the OL tag, and each list item is defined by the list tag, which is for short LI. So I'm going to give you an example of how to use the ordered list in HTML. Let's say you want to create 3 lists of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So first we are going to open the ordered list tag, and in between the opening and the closing tag, we're going to create a list item. So in between that, I'll pass HTML. Okay, and next will be CSS, and finally we have JavaScript. By default, the list items will be automatically marked with numbers while using the ordered list. You can see the numbers has been automatically added to each item which we added in between the opening and the closing list tag. So next we are going to look at the unordered list. An unordered list starts with the UL tag. So let me say I want to create another list in an unordered format. So we start with the UL tag. You can see the difference between this. This one is UL, short for unordered list, and the other one was ordered list, short for OL. So in between that, we're still going to add the same list item. And here I'm going to pass in red. Okay. And the next one will be green. And finally, we have blue. By default, unlike the ordered list that numbers are added automatically, by default the unordered list items will be marked with bullets. You can see the difference. This one has bullets and this one has numbers. So I'm going to show you how to create a table and add some styling to it using the attributes. So first, I'm going to remove the previous project which we did in our last video. Tables are defined by using the table tag. Tables are divided into table rows with the T arrow tag, which is table row tag. But don't worry, I'm going to give you an example later on. Table rows are divided into table columns. That is table data with the TD tag. So I'm going to show you an example of table with 1 row and 3 columns. First, as I said, we're going to use the table tag to create a table. And in between the table tag, we're going to create a table row using the T arrow tag. So this will tell the browser that we want to create 1 row in our table. So next is to define the table column using the TD tag. And I'm going to pass in, okay, let's use HTML for the first row. And the second row is still the same TD tag. And finally the third row. So you can see by default the table data tags TD acts as data containers within the table. They can contain all sorts of HTML elements such as text, images, lists, other tables, and so on. So you can see now the table has been added, 1 row and 3 columns each. But right now a border has not been added. In order to create a border around this table which we have created, we will go to the table tag and create a border attribute. So I want it to be 2 pixels. You can see the border has been added automatically to the table. Now you can see very clearly 1 row and 3 columns. A table cell can span 2 or more columns. So if for instance you want your table to span 2 or more columns, we can go down here still inside the table tag and specify another table row. Okay, then I'm going to add a new table column. So let's say hello. Okay, you can see it has been added, another row has been created. So I can say TD again and say table. Okay, you can see it has been added. So if I want this table now to span 2 columns, I'm going to use the col span attribute, which is col span attribute. So I will say 2 because I want it to span 2 columns, and I will write 2 there. You can see by default the table column has spanned 2 columns. If we go over here and create another file, let's say PHP, it's going to create here, but this one will not span into the other column. If I want it to span completely 3 columns, I'm going to change the 2 here to 3. And you can do the same thing in rows. Let's say we want this HTML to span 2 rows to occupy the space of this hello. We will go inside the tag and create a row span attribute, and we'll click 2. So we want it to span 2 rows. You can see by default the HTML has taken the 2 spaces over here. The border attribute is not supported in HTML5, but don't worry, later on we are going to learn about HTML. So next we are going to look at how we can align our content to the center of the page and also add a background color using the PG attributes and the align attributes. So to change your table's position, we use the align attribute inside the table tag. So inside the table tag, we're going to create another attribute, which is align, and since we want to align the table to the center, we use the value center. You can see the table has been aligned automatically to the center. If we increase the size of the browser, you can see it's still aligned to the center. Now let's specify a background color of red for a table cell. To do that, we are going to use the bg color attribute. So let's say this HTML in here, we want to change the background color to red. So I'm going to use the bg color attribute and give that a color of red. You can see by default the HTML cell has been colored red. So what about the table? I want to change the table color to blue. So I'll locate the table row, okay, and still use the bg color attribute and give it a color of blue. You can see it has been changed to blue. What about the JavaScript? Let's change that to green using the bg color attribute. Okay. In the case of styling elements, CSS is more effective than HTML. We recommend you to check out my CSS course to learn more about CSS and styles. So HTML forms are used to collect information from the user. Forms are defined using the form element with its opening and closing tag. So the syntax for the form element is like so. You can see it has an opening tag and a closing tag. We use the action attribute to point to a web page that will load after the user submits the form. So this form can contain as many attributes as needed. So one of the attributes it can contain is the action attribute. As I said, is used to point to a web page that will load after the user submits the form. And the action attribute is always like this. So in between the double quotes is the URL of the web server of the web page where we want to direct our form after it has been submitted. But in this video, we are not going to submit our form to any web page or any web server. So I'm going to leave this action attribute to be blank. And next is the method and the name attributes. So first I'm going to tell you about the method attributes. The method attribute specifies the HTTP, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So I say the method attribute specifies the HTTP method, which is get or post, to be used when forms are submitted. So for example, let's say we want to create a method attribute, and the first one is the get value. When you use get, the form data will be visible in the page address. So get is not really recommended when you have sensitive information in your form like password and you don't want users or you don't want the password to display on your website. So it's not advisable to use get. And the next method value is the post. So we use post if the form is updating data or includes sensitive information such as passwords. Post offers better security than the get because the submitted data is not visible to the page address. So I recommend that you always try to use post when you're trying to submit. Okay, so to take in user input, you need a corresponding form elements such as text, feed. The input element has many variations depending on the type attributes. It can be a text, a password, a radio, URL, checkbox, or the submit, and lots of them. So I'm going to give you an example that shows a form requesting a username and a password. In order to create the username and the password, we use the input tag, and specify its type. So we'll be using test for the username, and I'm going to give it the name of username. So I'm going to add a breakpoint on this, and also create another input for the password, and give this a name of password. The name attribute specifies a name for a form. So the input, the type, specify the type of input we want the user to put. So right now, if we pass in any value here, it's going to change to a test. So if we type in a value, it's going to change to a test. And the password attribute is going to, instead of it displaying as a test, it's going to display as a password, so it will not be visible to the user. If we change the type to radio, it allows the user select only one of a number of choices. So I'm going to leave this, but I'll go ahead and break it. Okay, so I'll use a h2 tag to say select your gender. Okay, so under it, I'm going to create an input tag with the type of radio. Don't forget, I said the radio type allows the user to select only one of a number of choices. So we're going to give the user two choices to select the name, whether the user is a male or a female. So this, I'll give it the type of radio, in the name of gender, and the value, which will be male, and close it up. And then I'll type in the actual test, which is male. So I'll break this and do the same thing for the female. So I'm going to change the value to female, close it up, and type in female. So you can see, if we ask the user to select his or her gender, if the user is a female, the male is not going to be highlighted. But if a user is a male and not a female, just click on the radio button and the female will not be highlighted. The male will be highlighted automatically with the bullet inside of it. So next is the type checkbox. The type checkbox allows the user to select more than one option. So let's say we want the user to select his or her favorite colors. So I'm going to use the h4 tag. So I'll say select your favorite color. Okay, so I'm still going to use the input type with the type checkbox, and give this a name of color, and value, the value will be 1 since it's the first, and I will change the color. I'll give it a color red. So I'll go ahead and break this and add more. So I'm going to add more. I'll change the value to 2 and this value to 3. So I'll change the text here, blue, and green. So you can see now the red, blue, and the green has been displayed. So if the user's favorite color is red and green, you can go ahead and click on the red and click on the blue. The blue will be on highlighted and the red will be highlighted. So if the user's favorite color is red and blue, or let me say the user's favorite color is only blue, so you can go ahead and click on the blue and it will be highlighted. You click on the red, the highlight will go off, and click on the green, the highlight will go off. So the checkbox type allows the user to select more than one option. You can see the input tag here has no end tag. It only has an opening tag. And finally, in this section is the submit button. So if after the user has typed in the things we want to get from their details, the user must click a button in order to submit. So what we are going to do is to create another input for the submit button. So you can see I'm going to change the type to submit and give this a value. So the value is going to change this. By default HTML, the web browser will give it a submit query. So I want to put my own value inside here instead of the submit query. So I'll use the value attribute and I will say send. Or if I don't want to use send, I can say submit. And this will do the job. After the form is submitted, so if I click on this form, the form has been submitted. But since we didn't specify any web server or web page in the action attribute, it's not going to send it to any location. So after the form is submitted, the data should be processed on the server using a programming language such as PHP. So if you are really interested in learning PHP, check out my other course, but I recommend you first learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript before you move over to PHP.